Welcome into another episode of Tailgate Talk SEC Week 6 recap time. This was a great week. It was a pretty fun week to watch. We had one absolute classic that happened down in Gainesville. Some of the other games weren't quite as close, but college football is college football, and you will never, ever catch me complaining about when we get to watch an SEC slate on Saturday. Now, this slate we got last week, it's not really much compared to what we're going to get this upcoming Saturday, which I cannot wait for, but let's run through a very consequential, maybe that's a good way to put it, Week 6 in the SEC. Let's start off with the two games that no one really cared about. Kent State at Oklahoma. 44-0 Oklahoma. I am so in love with the Sooners defense. They had 5 sacks, 13 TFLs, forced 2 turnovers, pitched a shutout to Kent State, but still, you have to be a very good unit to do what you did to anybody. And Kent State only had 135 total yards, 0.5 yards per carry. That's pretty good. That is very good defensively. In Oklahoma, they really took this game to try and work on their run game. They had 185 yards as a team. Torrey Blaylock led that charge with 78. Jaden Ott finally got some carries. He carried the ball 11 times for 49 yards. And Michael Hawkins was just okay. He was 14 of 24, had 162 yards and 3 scores. I would have liked to see a lot more out of him against a weaker opponent like Kent State ahead of this game against Texas, where I do believe he'll end up starting. There is still a chance, I do think, that Mateer comes back. Even if he does, how is that hand? Does he have a good grip on the ball? Can he really sling it around like we're used to seeing him do? So for Michael Hawkins, I didn't love what I saw. I didn't. It was just okay. I thought he was fine. The running game, it took a bit of a step. It was better than what we're used to seeing, but it was against Kent State in a spot where they clearly tried to emphasize it. So for Oklahoma offensively, it was a little rough, which I'm not overly shocked by. Right, because of the quarterback change. I was hoping it'd look a little bit better. They scored 44 points, right? It's not like they scored 27, so they still were able to put up good numbers. Oklahoma played well. That defense is something different, but this offense is going to have to really unlock something new, assuming it's Hawkins at quarterback when they go play Texas. Kentucky at Georgia. This one was 35-14 dogs. It was one of my best bets. Georgia covered for me by half a point, but a cover is a cover. They dominated everywhere in the stat sheet aside from turnovers, which were even. It was a simple game plan on offense for Georgia, right? Gunnar Stockton was just 15 of 23 passing for 196 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Chauncey Bowens led them rushing with 70 yards. They only had 2 sacks to Georgia, and that defensive front really has been a bit of a letdown throughout the season. They haven't gotten the pressure. They haven't been getting, really havoc in the backfield like we were used to seeing from Georgia. So only 2 sacks against this Kentucky team. Not as much as you wanted to see, but only holding them to 14. Still a pretty good number. Cutter Boley for Kentucky, bit better than I expected throwing the ball around. He was 25 of 41, had 225 and 2 touchdowns. Didn't have a pick. And in Kentucky, I said it last week, but they needed Seth McGowan to really go Superman if they wanted any chance in this game. He just didn't. He carried the ball 11 times, only 44 yards, had a fumble. Just a better team doing what they should at home for Georgia. It was a good bounce back for them following the Alabama game. And Georgia just keeps stacking wins against these lesser teams and get ready for the big matchups because they're still very much alive in this wide open SEC. 3 bigger games. Much more fun, much more impactful. Let's talk about them. First one was actually not fun at all. I lied to you guys. But Mississippi State went to A&M and lost 31-9 to the Aggies. It was a slow start really for both teams. A&M didn't score until very late in that first half, but A&M was just able to wear them down. Mike Elko, his identity really is, we're going to out-physical you, we're going to run the ball on you, we're just going to bleed you to death, and they did that very well in the second half. 303 rushing yards to only 77 in favor of the Aggies, 483 to 219 in total yards. A&M's defense held Mississippi State to just 1 of 10 on third downs. But I keep being not super impressed with Marcel Reed, especially passing the ball. He was 13 of 23, had 180 yards and 2 scores, did throw a pick. Ruben Owens, though, he was awesome running the ball for the Aggies. 21 carries for 142 yards, 4 sacks for the defense. It was the second straight really good outing for A&M's defense, which I had some questions about coming into SEC play. They were great against Auburn, and they were great against Mississippi State. They held Blake Shapen to only 15 of 20 passing for 142 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Fluff Bothell from Mississippi State, he was doing pretty good. He was running the ball just fine on the Aggies defense before he had to leave with an injury. State came out swinging, but they really got leaned on, and that was just the talent gap I think you saw eventually wear down the Bulldogs. A&M just has a better roster. They're bigger, they're more physical, they're faster, they're just better players, right? And you saw that really play out in the second half of that game when A&M ran away with it. Aggies stay undefeated, and they're probably one of my favorites at this point to get to Atlanta because of how they've looked, the way they can win games, and just sort of the way their schedule plays out. For Mississippi State, you kind of have to recalibrate now your expectations, right? Because you started off 4-0. You felt really good. And throughout that Tennessee game, right, it seemed like you might win that game. But now you're 0-2 in conference. I think it's 14 straight conference losses now for states. Their schedule is not great in terms of stacking wins in conference. So you sort of have to readjust your expectations, sort of reevaluate. Like, we felt really good at 4-0. Now we're 4-2. We've lost both our conference games. What really can we get done? And looking at their schedule, I think maybe just 1 or 2 conference wins is what's realistic for this team. But that's still a step in the right direction. It still is, because this program was really dead coming into this year. Then they came out hot. You started to think, oh, maybe they can really compete this year. They're just not going to be able to do that. So this year just needs to be another building block for Jeff Lebby in that program. Can they pick up 1 or 2 good wins in conference? Can they really start to get some momentum going, build on some of their younger players, and just sort of start preparing for the years in the future? I do still like the Bulldogs team a lot. They're just not really going to be able to compete week in and week out like it seemed like they could after 4 games. Vanderbilt and Alabama. Bama got their revenge on the Commodores. Diego Pavia's talking backfired on him this week. 30-14 Alabama. Now, Bama had 11 yards per pass compared to only 5.7 for Vanderbilt. Bama still can't run the ball. 3.6 yards per carry for Bama, 7.6 yards per rush for Vanderbilt, but that's a bit inflated. I'll get to that in a second. Ty Simpson, though, he put up big numbers. Again, this passing offense for Bama is really good. 23 of 31 for 340 yards and 2 touchdowns. Had a pick on the first drive, which was their first turnover of the year, I believe, but then he cleaned it up, was very sharp the rest of the game. It was a good day for Jam Miller in his second game back. 22 carries, 136 yards, and a touchdown. And Bama only had to punt 1 time. That offensive efficiency is very promising to see as they continue to develop, take a step forward after that week 1 disappointment. For Vanderbilt, Pavia having 2 turnovers is going to kill Vanderbilt every single time, especially on the road. He is the heart and soul of that team, even more so than the quarterback is for most schools. A pick and a fumble from him, that's really going it's going to kill him. Because he needs to take care of the ball. He needs to lead that team. When he's the one making mistakes, it's very hard for Vanderbilt to come back and win games. Now, there was not much of a rushing attack for Vanderbilt aside from their 2 explosives, right? Because Cedric Alexander had a 65-yard touchdown carry and Pavia had one for 36. Outside of that, those 2 carries, they only had 2.3 yards per rush. And Vanderbilt's identity really has been running the ball to open up some passing downfield for Pavia to throw to guys like Junior Sherrill, Eli Stowers, things like that. They really couldn't get it going consistently aside from those 2 big pops. And when you limit an offense like Vanderbilt's to you don't let them run the ball, it's a lot harder for them to score, and we saw that happen when they only scored 14 points in this game. It was kind of a weird split because watching the game, it really felt and was closer than a 16-point final margin, but the box score indicates a 3-score game for Bama. So it was sort of a weird dynamic between the stats, what you actually saw, and how the game ended up. Vanderbilt did prove they can compete, right, because this game was close for a while. They're just not quite over that hump to where, if the run game is not where it needs to be, can we win a different way? They clearly can't yet. And for Alabama, just keep stacking wins. Just keep winning. Protect your home field, especially because this SEC is wide open. Bama has not lost a game in conference yet. They can absolutely make a run at Atlanta and the playoffs still, which really not many people felt after that game against FSU. But Bama is still very much alive, and that is still Alabama. Texas at Florida, 29-21 Florida. I was in the stands for this game. The atmosphere that the Swamp is when the fans are energetic and they have a reason to be excited, I still believe is the best in the country. Because you had so many Texas guys, whether they work in media, whether they were just fans, who came to that game, and before they were even 50 yards away from the gates post-game, they were already talking about how loud that place is, how electric the environment is, and how it really does impact games in major ways. Like, the Swamp can swing the game by a touchdown. It can win this Florida team games that they really shouldn't win. And we kind of saw that happen. Lagway looked a lot more like himself this week, despite being on one leg after their second drive for the Gators. He was 21 of 28 passing for 298 and 2 scores. He had 1 pick where his arm was hit and Michael Taft was able to snag it. They finally fed Jaden Ball consistently. He had 27 carries for over 100 yards and a score. Dallas Wilson, man, is it too early to say he's the greatest football player of all time? Maybe it is. I won't say that yet. But he had 6 catches for 111 yards and 2 scores. An absurd tightrope on that long touchdown for Dallas. And I really love that the first play of the game went to him. Because what you've seen with Napier is you have all these great young players. There's not always an emphasis to get them the ball. And the first play went to him. He caught the ball on the drag, fumbled it, but fell on his own ball. I think that sort of kind of snapped him in like, now we're ready to go because it was his first game back from injury, immediately puts the ball on the ground, but he's able to get back on it. It was not consequential for the Gators. I love that the game plan early on featured getting the ball to Dallas Wilson. And the blocked punt for his safety, special teams wins games. In Florida, that was a big momentum turner. The crowd absolutely popped. And at that point, you really felt like something special is happening today with this crowd, with this Gators team. And they had 6 sacks to really disrupt Texas. And they did that all day long. There was so much pressure on Arch. He was only 16 of 29 passing for 263 and 2 touchdowns, also had 2 picks. The bigger thing, though, Texas's running backs had 11 carries for 15 yards. Arch was really their only pulse in the running game, which was mostly off of broken play scrambles. He had a few design runs, but the scrambles were really when he was able to get free. Texas's running backs couldn't do anything. In the passing game, though, it was more obvious being in the stands. Maybe it wasn't on the broadcast, but Texas had guys open downfield a lot. There was a lot of separation downfield, whether it was over the middle, going up the sideline. We saw the big play to Parker Livingstone. Arch just couldn't get the ball to him, whether that was because he was actively getting sacked, he was getting pressured and off balance, or he was just missing throws. The game was really decided by Florida's front 7 versus Texas's offensive line because everything else for Texas, I thought it was totally fine. Third downs, 7 of 14 for the Gators, 3 for 11 for Texas, another hat tip to Florida's pass rush, 4.3 yards per rush for the Gators, only 2 for Texas. Texas running the ball that poorly is not something that you're used to seeing. And this Florida team, they just refuse to give up on Billy Napier. Every time he's fired, the Gators come out and beat someone they shouldn't. It speaks so much to the culture that Napier has built and the buy-in of those players. But at a certain point, if you're Florida, you need to make the decision on Napier because, sure, they'll fight for you when you're about to get fired and you've lost 3 games, but why does it have to get to that point if you're the Gators, And on the other side, for Sarkisian, I think it's time that we start putting Steve Sarkisian in the same conversation as James Franklin. They're going to have talented teams. They will win the games they should win. He can't get it done. Sorry, he hasn't gotten it done. I won't say can't because hasn't doesn't mean he can't. But Sarkisian, to have as many resources as he has and have an offensive line that's this poor, blocking for a young quarterback, for a running back group that has the talent to be a great rushing attack, it's just bad. It's coaching malpractice, really, to not have your team built to be able to beat a Florida team that is really drowning. Even though it is on the road in a hard atmosphere. Now, if they had lost this game, but it was, 31-27, and Arch had 3 touchdowns, only got sacked twice, the discourse is probably a little bit different because it was a good spot for Florida overall to pull this upset. But Texas just does not look ready to beat a great team. Only scored 7 points against Ohio State, 21 against the Gators, but the game wasn't really that close. Florida dominated most of the stats. So if you're Sarkisian, you have to look in the mirror and just wonder, what is it that I have to fix in order for my team to be ready to go win these big games? Because right now, I don't like Texas to make the playoff. I don't like them to make it to Atlanta. Texas is not in a great spot. It's a pretty bleak outlook for the Longhorns, really because of the performance of that offensive line. And I don't know if that's something that can get fixed in the middle of the season in time for Texas to really make a big shift and become a player in the SEC and for the college football playoff. But a massive win for the Gators, who have to go to A&M this week, and Texas gets ready for the Red River Shootout, which will probably not be a shootout, but we'll get to that later in the week when we do our previews. It was a quick week. There were not that many SEC games, so we are through with the Week 6 recap. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We will have preview content coming at you all week. I have been Will Thomas, and thank you for watching this episode of Tailgate Talk SEC.